The council chamber was silent. Ambassador Tiras stood at the center of the grand hall, her pale blue skin darker than usual from stress. Around her, representatives from 40 different species sat in their elevated seats, looking down at her with expressions ranging from pity to indifference. "Please," Tiras said, her voice breaking. 4 billion of my people are on Velos the 4. The swarm will reach us in 3 days. We need help. The Threne delegate spoke first. His massive form shifted in his seat, causing the metal to groan. "Ambassador, we sympathize with your situation, but the Ravager swarm has destroyed every fleet sent against it. Every single one. We cannot sacrifice our ships and crews for a battle that cannot be won." Tiras felt her chest tighten. "But if we do nothing, then your people will die quickly," the Ascendant representative interrupted. Her voice was cold and precise. "If we send our fleets, your people will still die, and so will thousands of ours." "Mathematics?" Tiras's voice rose. "These are lives. Families? Children. Children. Mathematics. Children." The Krall war chief stood, his armored plates clicking together. The Krall were known across the galaxy as fierce warriors, proud and brave. Surely they would help. "Ambassador Tiras, the Krall do not fear death, but we do not embrace meaningless death. The swarm cannot be fought. It can only be survived by those fortunate enough to be elsewhere. I am sorry. The looseless, on farm, do not fear death." One by one, every delegate gave their answer. No. 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 All of them the same. Tiras stood alone in the chamber after they left. Her communication device beeped. It was her homeworld. She didn't want to answer. What could she tell them? That the galaxy had abandoned them? That they would die because helping them was mathematically unfavorable? She pressed the button anyway. "This is Tiras. Ambassador, any news?" The voice belonged to first speaker Helen, the leader of her world. They refused. All of them. Tiras sat down on the cold floor of the empty chamber. "I'm sorry. I failed." There was a long pause. "You didn't fail, Tiras. They did. Come home. Spend the last days with your family." "Yes," first speaker. But Tiras didn't leave immediately. She accessed the Council's communication network and sent one final message. A desperate broadcast to every known species in the galaxy. Even the ones not on the Council. Even the primitive ones. Even the ones barely capable of space travel. "This is Ambassador Tiras of Velos 4. In 3 days, my world will be attacked by the Ravager swarm. 4 billion people will die. We have no defense. We have no hope. If anyone can hear this, if anyone is willing to help, please, we are begging you." She sent the message and gathered her things. It was time to go home and die with her people. The response came 6 hours later. Tiras was on a transport ship heading back to Velos 4 when her device chirped. She almost ignored it. What was the point? But old habits made her check. The message was short. Just 2 sentences. But they made her hands shake. "Hold position. We're coming." The signature identified the sender as Earth. Tiras searched the Council database. Earth was a recently contacted world on the far edge of known space. It had been surveyed only 5 years ago. The reports made her heart sink. Death world. Class 12. Lethality. Dominant species. Humans. Status. Pre-Council. Technological level. Adequate. Military capability. Unknown. Recommendation. Observe from distance. Warning. Planet exhibits extreme biodiversity with numerous apex predators. Dominant species evolved in competitive environment. Approach with caution. A death world. They were sending help from a death world. Tiras didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Death worlders were rare in the galaxy. Most species evolved on calm, stable planets. But some, like humans apparently, evolved on worlds that constantly tried to kill them. She sent a reply. Earth vessel. This is Ambassador Tiris. I appreciate your response, but you may not understand the threat level. The Ravager swarm has destroyed every military force sent against it. Current estimates suggest thousands of ships would be needed for even a small chance of success. How many ships are you sending? The response came quickly. 12 ships. Arriving in 2 days. 12 ships. Against a swarm that had destroyed entire armadas, Tiris felt the brief spark of hope die in her chest. These humans didn't understand. They were going to die for nothing. She sent another message, trying to be gentle. Earth vessel. 12 ships will not be enough. Please, don't sacrifice your people needlessly. The reply was longer this time. Ambassador Tiris, this is Captain Deho of the Earth ship Indomitable. We understand the odds. We're coming anyway. Prepare your orbital space for our arrival. We'll need clear approach vectors to the swarm's expected entry point. Send us all tactical data you have. Tiris stared at the message. They knew it was hopeless, and they were coming anyway. Why? It made no sense. She sent the tactical data. What else could she do? When Tiris arrived at Velos IV, the planet was in chaos. Ships were leaving the orbital stations, packed with refugees hoping to escape before the swarm arrived. The defense fleet, what little remained of it, was positioned in a desperate formation above the planet. Admiral Kelvin contacted her immediately. Tiris, I heard about the council. I'm sorry. There may be help coming. Tiris said, though she didn't believe it herself. Oh? Who? A species called humans, from Earth. Kelvin pulled up the same database report Tiris had read. His face fell. A pre-council species from a death world? How many ships? 12. Kelvin was quiet for a moment. That's kind of them. I'll make sure their sacrifice is remembered. They seem to think they can help. Then they don't understand what they're facing. Kelvin looked tired. So tired. The swarm doesn't just destroy ships, Tiris. It consumes them, breaks them apart at the molecular level, and uses the materials to make more of itself. Every ship we lose makes it stronger. Those 12 human ships won't even slow it down. Tiris knew he was right. But something about Captain Deho's messages bothered her. The humans knew the odds. They had to know. So why come? She thought about the database entry. Evolved in competitive environment. What did that mean exactly? How competitive? She spent the next hours researching Earth, looking for any information she could find. What she found terrified her. Earth had thousands of species that could kill a human. Poison animals, giant predators, tiny bacteria that caused deadly diseases. The weather alone could kill in dozens of ways. Extreme heat, extreme cold, storms with winds strong enough to destroy buildings. And the humans? They had spent their entire history fighting, not just the planet, but each other. Wars. Thousands of wars. The database listed conflict after conflict. They had weapons designed to kill millions. They had strategies for every type of battle. They had words for things like acceptable losses, and strategic withdrawal, and Pyrrhic victory. The Velen language didn't even have words for some of these concepts. Tiris sat back, her mind racing. What kind of species evolved like this? What kind of people chose to live on a world that constantly tried to kill them, and then spent their time killing each other? And those were the people coming to help. Her device chirped again. Another message from Captain Deho. Ambassador Tiris, we'll arrive in 22 hours. We'll need a communication channel with your defense fleet and orbital control. Also, please evacuate any civilians from the projected battle zone. This is going to get messy. Messy. Tiris almost laughed. The end of her world was going to be Messy. But then, she noticed something in the message metadata. It wasn't just from Captain Deho. It was copied to 11 other ship captains. Each message had a name attached. Captain Deho of the Indomitable, Captain Hagen of the Resolute, Captain Bogum of the Defiant. 12 ships, 12 captains. And in the crew manifests attached to the message, Tiris saw something that made her pause. Every single human on those ships was listed as a volunteer. Not professional soldiers. Not military personnel assigned to the mission. Volunteers. They had chosen to come. Tiris looked out at the stars, at the direction Earth would be if she could see that far. Somewhere out there, 12 ships full of volunteers from a death world were racing to save people they'd never met. She didn't know if they could help, but she knew one thing: they were coming. And that was more than anyone else had done. The 12 human ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. Tiris watched from the orbital command center. Her breath caught in her throat. The ships were smaller than she expected, certainly smaller than the massive warships the Threen Collective used, or the sleek destroyers of the Ascendant Empire. These ships looked practical, functional, like tools rather than weapons. Human vessels. This is Velos 4V orbital control. We read your arrival. Welcome. Admiral Kelvin's voice was professional, but Tiris could hear the sadness underneath. He was welcoming people to their deaths. Orbital control. This is Captain Deho. Thanks for the hospitality. Transmitting our formation plan now. We'll establish a defensive perimeter at these coordinates. A tactical map appeared on Tiris's screen. The human ships were positioning themselves in a strange pattern, not the typical sphere or wall formation that standard galactic doctrine suggested. Captain Deho, your formation seems unusual, Kelvin said carefully. It's designed for maximum crossfire and mutual support. We don't fight like you do, Admiral. You'll see. Tiris activated her communication channel. Captain Deho, this is Ambassador Tiris. I want to thank you for coming, but I must ask, why? Your government must know this is almost certainly a suicide mission. There was a pause. Then a different voice came through. Female, and calm. Ambassador. This is Commander He-Jin from the Resolute. Our government didn't send us. We volunteered. All of us. But why? Because you asked for help. Because people were going to die if we didn't come. Does there need to be another reason? Tiris felt something twist in her chest. I don't understand. You don't know us. We're strangers. Captain Deho's voice returned. Ambassador, on Earth, we have a saying. The only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing. The swarm is evil. You needed help. We're here. It's that simple. It wasn't simple at all to Tiris, but she didn't argue. The swarm arrived 8 hours later. It came from the dark space between stars, a writhing mass of bioships that defied every law of physics the galaxy knew. The ships weren't built. They were grown, living things that moved like a single organism, flowing and shifting in patterns that hurt to watch. The Velen Defense Fleet, 30 ships in total, moved to intercept. Tiris knew it was pointless. The swarm had destroyed fleets 10 times that size. All Velen ships, hold position. Deho's voice cut across the command channel. Let them come to us. Captain, we need to engage them before they reach orbital range. Admiral Kelvin protested. No, Admiral. Trust me. Let them come. Kelvin looked at Tiris. She nodded. What did they have to lose? The swarm advanced. Thousands of bioships, each one pulsing with sickly light. They moved in perfect coordination, like a school of fish or a flock of birds. Beautiful and terrible at the same time. When they reached the human defensive line, Deho's voice rang out. All human vessels. Fire! What happened next would be talked about in the galaxy for generations. The human ships didn't fire energy beams or plasma cannons like standard galactic warships. They fired everything. Missiles, with nuclear warheads, railgun projectiles moving at relativistic speeds, laser batteries, kinetic impactors, chemical explosives, things Tiras didn't even have names for. And they didn't fire at the swarm's ships. They fired at the space between them. The explosions created a wall of fire and radiation. The swarm's perfect formation shattered as bioships burned and died. But more importantly, the survivors were scattered, separated, their coordination broken. Now, Deho said. Velen Fleet, target the isolated ships, one at a time. Concentrate all fire. It worked. Without their formation, the swarm ships were vulnerable. The combined human and Velen forces tore through them one by one. In 30 minutes, over 200 swarm ships were destroyed. But there were thousands more. They're adapting. Hagen's voice was tense. They're not clumping together anymore, spreading out. Expected, Deho replied. All ships. Switch to pattern delta. Focus on denial of space, not destruction. The human ships moved again, this time spreading out themselves. They weren't trying to destroy every swarm ship. Instead, they were using their weapons to create zones of fire that the swarm couldn't safely enter, channeling them, herding them. What are they doing? Kelvin whispered. Tiras was beginning to understand. They're controlling the battlefield, forcing the swarm to fight where the humans want, not where the swarm wants. Hours passed. The battle continued. The human ships took damage but kept fighting. Tiras watched as the Resolute lost its main engines, but continued to fire, using maneuvering thrusters to stay in position. The Defiant had a hole torn in its side, but didn't retreat. And slowly, impossibly, the swarm's advance stopped. All ships, status report, Deho called. One by one, the human captains reported. Every ship was damaged. 2 were barely functional, but all 12 were still fighting. Velen Fleet? Deho asked. Kelvin checked his screens. We've lost 3 ships. The rest are still operational, but ammunition is running low. Same here. We need to talk about the next phase. Next phase? Kelvin looked confused. Captain, we've done well. Better than I dreamed possible. But we can't hold forever. Eventually we'll need to fight them on the ground, Deho interrupted. Because they're going to get through. Some of them always get through. We need to prepare for ground operations. Tiras felt cold. Ground operations? Captain, my people don't fight. We don't know how. We're not warriors. You will be. This was Hagen again. We'll teach you. Fast. Starting now. We're sending down training teams to your major cities. They'll show your people the basics of combat. Enough to survive. In how long? We have maybe a day before. Then we have a day. A new voice joined the channel. Male, deeper than Deho's. Orbital Control. This is Colonel Minho. I'm leading the ground forces. We're loading the dropships now. Where do you need us? Kelvin pulled up a map of Velos 4. The capital city, Serenity Falls, has the largest population. 200 million people. If the swarm reaches the surface, they'll target it first. Then that's where we'll be. Transmitting drop coordinates now. We'll need your militia ready to learn. And we'll need them ready to learn fast. The dropships launched an hour later. Tiras watched them descend through the atmosphere. Small dots of light against the blue sky of her homeworld. Inside, those ships were humans. Deathworlders coming to teach her peaceful people how to kill. She accessed the communication channel to the surface. This is Ambassador Tiras to all ground stations. Human forces are landing in major cities. They're here to help. Please cooperate fully with their instructions. The responses came back quickly. Mostly confusion and fear. Her people had never seen aliens that looked like humans. Hadn't experienced war. Didn't understand what was coming. A new channel opened. A young human woman's face appeared on screen. Ambassador Tiras? I'm Lieutenant Salmon. I'm a pilot with the strike force. Just wanted to introduce myself. Lieutenant, what can I do for you? Nothing, ma'am. I just thought you should know. We're going to do everything we can. All of us. We didn't come this far to give up. Tiris studied the young woman's face. She looked so fragile. Small features. No armor plating. No natural weapons. How could such delicate creatures be warriors? Lieutenant, can I ask you something? Sure. You're very young. Have you ever been in a real battle before? Salmon smiled. But it wasn't a happy smile. I fought in the Pacific Uprising when I was 17. Lost my brother in that one. Then, the African campaign. Then, border security on the Kashmir line. I'm 24 years old, Ambassador. I've been in 4 wars. 4 wars. At 24. Tiris didn't know what to say. The thing is, Salmon continued, humans have been fighting forever. It's what we do. What we're good at. Most species in the galaxy evolved past war. We never did. Never needed to. Earth kept trying to kill us. So we learned to be hard to kill. And when we weren't fighting Earth, we fought each other. Learned every dirty trick. Every tactic. Every way to win. When winning shouldn't be possible. That sounds horrible. It is. War is always horrible. But today, all those horrible lessons might save your people. That makes it worth it. The communication ended. Tiris sat in silence, thinking about what Salmon had said. A species that never stopped fighting. That learned war like other species. Learned art, or music, or philosophy. And now, they were here, fighting for strangers. On the surface, Minho's forces were setting up defensive positions around Serenity Falls. Tiris watched through drone cameras as human soldiers moved with practiced efficiency. They didn't waste motion. Didn't hesitate. Every action had purpose. Velen militia members watched them work, confused and scared. These aliens were showing them how to hold weapons they'd never seen before, teaching them words like cover and suppressing fire and fields of fire. One human, a sergeant named Tae-young, was addressing a group of Velen volunteers. I know you're scared. That's good. Fear keeps you alive. But fear can also freeze you. When the swarm comes, you'll want to run. Don't. Running alone gets you killed. Running together? In formation? With covering fire? That's called a tactical retreat. That might save you. How do we know when to retreat? One Velen asked. I'll tell you. That's my job. Your job is to shoot what I tell you to shoot, move where I tell you to move, and stay alive. Can you do that? Nervous nods. Good. Now let's practice loading these rifles. You've got 6 hours to learn what usually takes 6 months. Let's not waste time. OPAM. Wentain li lengses. And explain. Wentain li lengsevater. Wentain li desayam. And to 6 p.m., back in orbit, the battle continued. The swarm kept probing, testing, trying to find weaknesses in the human defense. And the humans kept adapting, changing tactics every time the swarm learned their patterns. Daeho's voice came over the command channel. All ships, be advised. Swarm is attempting to flank. 300 bioships breaking from main force. Heading for the southern orbital approach. Resolute moving to intercept. Hagen responded. Negative, Resolute. You're too damaged. We need you holding center position. Defiant and Valiant. Take the intercept. 2 human ships peeled away from the formation, moving to block the flanking maneuver. Tiris watched as they unleashed another barrage of mixed weapons. The swarm ships died, but so did the Valiant. Overwhelmed by superior numbers, the ship's reactor went critical. It detonated, taking 40 swarm ships with it. Valiant is gone, someone reported. Voice flat. Controlled. Like they announced weather instead of death. Confirmed. Rest in peace, valiant crew. All ships, close ranks. Cover that gap. That was it. No ceremony, no mourning, just acknowledgement and adaptation, because the battle wasn't over, and it wouldn't be over for a long time. The swarm ships broke through the orbital defenses at dawn. Despite everything the human fleet had done, despite the impossible stand they'd made in space, 300 bioships slipped past and entered the atmosphere. Tiris watched them fall like burning meteors toward the surface of her world. Ground forces, this is orbital control. Multiple swarm landing sites detected. Serenity Falls has 37 impacts in the surrounding region. Estimated bioform deployment, 50,000 units. Minho's voice came back calm and steady. Confirmed. We see them. All units. Defensive positions. Remember your training. Wait for targets to enter range. Tiris switched her view to ground cameras around the capital city. She could see the swarm bioforms emerging from their landed ships. They looked like nightmares made real. Insect-like bodies the size of ground vehicles, multiple limbs ending in blades and claws, and worst of all, the psychic screaming they projected. A telepathic fear that paralyzed most species. She watched Velen militia members collapse, clutching their heads, overwhelmed by terror. But the humans? The humans stood firm. Some looked uncomfortable, but none fell. None ran. What's happening? Admiral Kelvin asked. Why aren't your people affected by the fear projection? Minho answered, and Tiris could hear gunfire in the background. Humans evolved alongside apex predators, Admiral. Big cats that hunted us. Pack hunters that stalked us. Snakes whose venom could kill in minutes. We learned to function through fear. It's not that we don't feel it. We just don't let it stop us. Now, if you'll excuse me, we have contacts approaching the western barricade. The battle for Serenity Falls began. Tiris watched it all through multiple camera feeds. The humans had positioned themselves at key defensive points throughout the city, teaching the Velen militia through the night. Now, those lessons were being tested. At the western barricade, Sergeant Taeyong commanded a mixed force of 20 humans and 80 Velens. The swarm bioforms charged toward them in a wave of claws and teeth. Hold! Taeyong's voice was steady. Wait for it. Wait! The Velens were shaking. Tiris could see it even through the camera. But they held their positions because the human sergeant was there, standing calmly as nightmares charged toward him. Now, fire! The barricade erupted with gunfire. The swarm's front ranks disintegrated under the concentrated fire. Bioforms fell, twitched, died. But more came behind them. Always more. Reload. First rank, pull back. Second rank, step up and fire. Keep the rhythm, just like we practiced. The Velens moved clumsily, not as smooth as humans, but they moved. They fired. They reloaded. They didn't run, but the swarm kept coming. We can't hold here, one of the human soldiers said. There's too many. Then we won't hold here. All units, prepare tactical retreat on my mark. Fall back to second defensive line, covering fire on rotation. 3, 2, 1. Mark. The mixed force retreated in stages, exactly as practiced. The humans covered the Velens as they pulled back. Then the Velens provided covering fire while the humans moved. It wasn't pretty, but it worked. They reached the second defensive line, with only minor casualties. Across the city, similar battles raged. Lieutenant Salmon flew her fighter craft low over the city streets, providing close air support. She called out targets to ground forces, dropped precision munitions on swarm concentrations, and generally made herself the most dangerous thing in the sky. Minho, you've got a group forming up 3 blocks west of your position. Looks like they're preparing for a coordinated assault. Win. Can you break them up? Already on it. Salmon's fighter screamed over the rooftops and unleashed a barrage of missiles. The swarm concentration vanished in fire and shrapnel, but her fighter took hits from swarm bioweapons. Tyrus watched the damage reports flash across her screen. Engine trouble. Fuel leak. Systems failing. Salmon, your aircraft is compromised. Return to base for repairs, Minho ordered. Negative. Still got weapons. Still got some control. I can do more good here. Lieutenant, that's an order. With respect, Colonel, I didn't come all this way to play it safe. There's a swarm command node forming at grid reference 7-2. I can take it out. Salmon, already committed. Tell my mom I'm sorry about the vase. Tyrus didn't understand the reference, but she watched as Salmon's crippled fighter dove toward a cluster of larger swarm bioforms. The forms that coordinated the others. The fighter's remaining missiles launched, and then Salmon did something insane. She crashed her aircraft directly into the command node. The explosion lit up the entire district. Salmon is down, someone reported. Minho was silent for a moment. Then, confirmed. Her sacrifice took out the command node. The swarm forces in sectors 4 through 9 are showing disorganization. All units, press the advantage now while they're confused. The human forces surged forward, and the Velen militia followed. Without coordination, the swarm bioforms were easier to kill. They fell by the hundreds, but there were thousands more. Inside a civilian shelter beneath the city, a human medic named Jiwoo worked frantically. The shelter had become a makeshift hospital, filled with wounded humans and Velens. Jiwoo moved between them, treating injuries without distinction. This one needs immediate surgery, Jiwoo called out. Compound fracture. Internal bleeding. That's a Velen, another medic said. Don't we need to prioritize our own people? Jiwoo looked up, her hands covered in blue Velen blood. Are you seriously asking me that? They're wounded. They need help. That's all that matters. Now get me the surgical kit. Tyrus watched through a shelter camera as Jiwoo worked. The human medic operated on the Velen patient, while explosions shook the building above. Her hands never wavered. When she finished, she immediately moved to the next patient, a human soldier with severe burns. You saved that Velen's life, Tyrus transmitted to the shelter. Thank you. Jiwoo looked up at the camera, tired and blood-stained. It's my job, Ambassador. Besides, we didn't come here to let people die. Any people. The battle raged for hours. Human forces held their positions, adapted when they had to, and taught the Velen militia how to survive. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't heroic. It was brutal and exhausting and terrifying, but it worked. By midday, the swarm's advance had stalled. The bioforms kept attacking, but they weren't gaining ground. The defense was holding. Status report. Minho. Called over the command channel. Status report. Minho. The reports came in from all sectors. High casualties. Ammunition running low. Everyone exhausted. But the lines were holding. We can't keep this up forever, Taeyong said. We need reinforcements or resupply. There are no reinforcements, Minho replied. This is everyone. This is everything. In orbit, the situation was equally desperate. The human fleet, now down to 9 ships, continued to intercept swarm vessels. They'd prevented thousands of bioships from landing, but they couldn't stop them all. Captain Daeho, we have a problem, Heejin transmitted. The swarm is changing tactics. They're ignoring our defensive positions and heading straight for the planet. They're accepting our fire just to get more forces on the ground. Daeho checked his tactical display. She was right. The swarm had learned. Instead of trying to defeat the human fleet, they were just bypassing it, taking losses to land more troops. All ships, new priority. Target engines and propulsion only. Don't try to destroy them. Disable them. If they can't reach the planet, they're neutralized. It was a desperate strategy, but it worked better than trying to destroy every ship. The human vessels focused their fire on engines and maneuvering systems. Swarm bioships tumbled through space, unable to control their descent. Some burned up in atmosphere. Others missed the planet entirely. but some still got through. On the ground, Minho received reports of new landing sites. "We've got fresh swarm forces landing in Sector 12. That's near the evacuation shelters." "I'll take a team," Taeyong volunteered. "We can get there in 10 minutes. The shelters have 3,000 civilians, mostly children and elderly. If the swarm reaches them, then we make sure the swarm doesn't reach them. Simple as that." Taeyong gathered a squad, 6 humans and 12 Velans, who had proven themselves in the fighting. They loaded into a transport and raced toward Sector 12. Tiras watched through drone cameras as they arrived. The swarm forces were already at the shelter entrance, trying to break through the reinforced doors. About 200 bioforms. And Taeyong had 18 soldiers. "This is insane," one of the Velan militia members said. "We can't fight that many." "You're right," Taeyong said calmly. "We can't beat them in a straight fight. So we won't fight straight. See that building? And that alley? And those support columns? We're going to use the terrain. Make them come at us in small groups. Kill them a few at a time. It's called a force multiplier. What if it doesn't work? Then we die, making sure those civilians have time to evacuate through the emergency tunnels. But I didn't survive the Siberian campaign to die on an alien world. So, let's make this work." They set up a deadly trap. Using the urban terrain, they created a kill zone, where the swarm could only approach from one direction. Then, Taeyong did something that made Tiras's blood run cold. He exposed himself, drawing the swarm's attention. The bioforms charged him. He ran, leading them into the kill zone, and his squad opened fire. It worked. The swarm couldn't maneuver in the confined space. They couldn't use their numbers. The human and Velan force cut them down in concentrated bursts of fire, but there were so many. The battle became desperate. Hand-to-hand combat when bioforms got too close. One human soldier fell. Then another. Velans too, dying to protect their civilians. "Keep firing," Taeyong shouted. "They have to go through us to get to those civilians. So they're not getting through. You hear me? They're not getting through." And they didn't. When the last swarm bioform fell, Taeyong's squad had lost 4 humans and 7 Velans. But the shelter was safe. 3,000 civilians lived because 18 soldiers refused to yield. Tiras watched Taeyong slump against a wall, exhausted and bleeding. A young Velan militia member approached him. "Sergeant, why did you do that? You could have retreated. Saved yourself." Taeyong looked at the Velan like he'd asked a strange question. "There were children in that shelter. Our children, your children, doesn't matter. They needed protection. Where I come from, adults protect children. That's not negotiable." The Velan looked at the dead humans scattered around the kill zone. "Your friends died for our people." "Yeah, they did. That's what soldiers do. We stand between the innocent and the monsters. Doesn't matter who's innocent. Doesn't matter who's monsters." Across Serenity Falls, similar stories played out. Humans and Velans fighting side by side, learning to trust each other through the crucible of combat. The Velans learned that humans would die to protect them. The humans learned that Velans, despite their peaceful nature, could be fierce when defending their homes. As night fell on the first day of ground combat, the defense had held. Barely. The casualties were heavy. The exhaustion was total. But the swarm had not taken the city. Minho gathered his commanders for a brief meeting. "Good work today. We held. Tomorrow will be harder. The swarm knows our tactics now. They'll adapt. We need to adapt faster. Colonel, we're down to 30% ammunition," one commander reported. "Maybe less. And our forces are exhausted. Then we'll make every shot count. And we'll rest in shifts. The swarm doesn't stop. So neither do we. For how long? How long can we keep this up?" Minho was quiet. Then, "As long as we have to," we made a promise. We told these people we'd protect them. I intend to keep that promise. In orbit, Daeho asked Heejin the same question privately. How long can we hold? Heijin checked her tactical displays. 2 days. Maybe 3. Then we'll run out of ammunition and fuel. After that, we ram them. Use our ships as weapons. That's what I figured you'd say. Is that a problem? No, Captain. That's exactly what I'd say too. We didn't come here to give up. Tiris listened to these transmissions and felt something break inside her. These humans were going to die for her people. All of them. They knew it. They accepted it. And they were going to fight anyway. She opened a channel to Daeho. Captain, you need to withdraw. You've done enough. Saved millions. Please, don't throw away your lives. Ambassador, with respect, we'll decide when we've done enough. And we're not done yet. But you'll die. Maybe. Probably. But your people will live. That's the trade. We'll take it. Tiris couldn't speak. Couldn't argue. What do you say to people who choose to die for strangers? On the surface, the night was filled with the sounds of battle. The swarm attacked constantly, testing the defenses, probing for weaknesses, and the humans, exhausted and running out of ammunition, held the line. Because they promised they would. And humans, Tiris was learning, kept their promises. 3 weeks. That's how long the battle for Velos the Four lasted. 3 weeks of constant fighting. 3 weeks of humans holding impossible positions against impossible odds. 3 weeks of Velans learning what it meant to fight for survival. The human casualties were devastating. 60% dead or critically wounded. The ships in orbit were barely functional, held together by emergency repairs and stubborn determination. On the ground, Colonel Minho commanded forces that were running on fumes and willpower, but they held every critical position. Every shelter. Every evacuation route. Every civilian center. The galaxy was watching now. The Galactic Council had sent observation ships to document the battle. They watched in stunned silence, as humans did what every military strategist said was impossible. They fought the Ravager swarm to a standstill. This doesn't make sense, one Threen military analyst said. Their technology isn't superior. Their numbers are insignificant. By every calculation, they should have been overrun in the first day. But they weren't, the Ascendant Observer replied. Look at their tactics. They adapt constantly. They use terrain. They coordinate between space and ground forces perfectly. And most importantly, they don't break. Every time we think they're finished, they find a way to keep fighting. In the council chambers, the same delegates who had refused to help Velos 4 now watched the battle feeds. Some looked ashamed. Others looked thoughtful. All of them were silent. On Velos the 4th, Captain Daeho studied the tactical data in his damaged command center. The Indomitable had taken heavy hits. Half the ship's systems were offline. But Daeho wasn't focused on his ship. He was focused on a pattern he'd noticed in the swarm's behavior. Heijin, are you seeing this? Commander Heijin pulled up the same data on the Resolute. Her ship was in even worse shape, but she was still analyzing, still fighting. The command and control pattern. They all trace back to a single source. A hive ship. It has to be. The swarm vessels we've been fighting are drones. But somewhere out there, there's a central intelligence controlling them. We haven't detected any ship large enough to be a hive, because it's staying back, hiding behind the drone waves. But look at these communication patterns. They all originate from the same point in space. About 2 million kilometers behind the main swarm force. Heijin ran calculations. If we're right, and if we could destroy that hive ship. Rind. Well, the drones would lose coordination, maybe shut down entirely, or at least become much easier to fight. It's a big if, Captain. You have a better plan? Heijin was quiet for a moment. We'd need to punch through the entire swarm fleet. Reach that hive ship, Destroy it. The odds of success are, Drax, non-existent, I know. But we're running out of time. Another week, and we'll have nothing left to fight with. This might be our only chance. It's a suicide mission. Yes, I'm in. Deho smiled despite everything. I knew you would be. Let's brief the other captains. The meeting was held over secure channels. All 9 remaining human ship captains joined, along with Colonel Minho from the surface and Admiral Kelvin representing the Velen forces. Deho laid out his plan. We've identified what we believe is a hive ship controlling the swarm. If we destroy it, the drones should lose coordination. But getting to it means a direct assault through the heart of the swarm fleet. How many ships would make the run? Captain Bogum asked. All of them. We need maximum firepower to punch through. That leaves the orbital defense empty. The swarm will have free access to the planet. Only if we fail. If we succeed, the swarm loses the ability to coordinate attacks. The remaining drones will be manageable. And if we fail, the planet falls in hours. Yes. The channel was silent. Then Heijin spoke. We're already dead. Operationally speaking. We have maybe a week left before we're completely out of resources. This plan at least gives Velos 4 a chance. What about the ground forces? Minho asked. Can you hold if we pull all ships for this assault? We'll hold, Minho said. Do what you need to do, Captain. We'll keep the civilians safe. One by one, the ship captains agreed. It was suicide. They all knew it. But it was a chance. The only chance left. Then we go in 6 hours, Deho said. Use the time to make any necessary repairs. Rest if you can. And it's been an honor serving with all of you. The meeting ended. Deho sat alone in his command center, thinking about Earth, his family, the life he'd left behind to volunteer for this mission. He didn't regret coming. Even now, facing certain death, he didn't regret it. His communication console beeped. It was Ambassador Tiris. Captain Deho, I intercepted your tactical briefing. This plan is insane. Yes, it is. You're all going to die. Probably. Then why do it? Deho thought about how to answer. Ambassador, humans have a concept called sacrifice. We give up something valuable for something more valuable. In this case, we give up our lives so your people can live. The math is simple. 9 ships with crews of about 200 each. That's less than 2,000 people. Velos the 4 has 4 billion. Trading 2,000 for 4 billion? That's a good deal. But those are your lives, your people. Yes. And we choose to give them. That's the point of sacrifice, Ambassador. It only means something if it costs us something. Tiris was crying. Deho could hear it in her voice. I don't understand your species. I don't understand how you can be so violent and so noble at the same time. We're human, Deho said simply. We're complicated. We fight and kill and destroy. But we also protect and save and sacrifice. We're capable of great evil and great good. Today, we choose good. The galaxy will remember what you did here. I hope so. Not for glory, but so other species learn the lesson. That sometimes you have to fight. That sometimes you have to sacrifice. That the only thing evil needs to win is for good people to do nothing. If the galaxy learns that, then maybe this won't happen again. The call ended. Deho prepared his ship for the final mission. On the surface, Minho gathered his surviving commanders. About 800 humans were left from the original 3,000. They looked exhausted, wounded, beaten down by weeks of constant combat. The fleet is making a final push, Minho told them. If they succeed, we win. If they fail, the swarm will have free access to the planet. Either way, we hold. No matter what. Every shelter, every civilian center, every evacuation route. We hold until the end. And what is the end, sir? Taeyong asked. The sergeant looked like a ghost, hollow-eyed and pale, but still standing. The end is when the civilians are safe, or when we're all dead, whichever comes first. A human named Junho stepped forward. He was an engineer, not a soldier, but he'd fought as hard as anyone. Colonel, if the fleet fails, the swarm will overrun us in hours. We don't have the ammunition or manpower to stop them. Then we'll use improvised weapons. We'll use the terrain. We'll use our bodies if we have to. We promise to protect these people. I intend to keep that promise. Junho nodded slowly. Then I have an idea. It's desperate and dangerous, but it might work. I'm listening. The city's power plant. It's fusion-based. If we overload the reactor, we could create a massive explosion, big enough to take out any swarm force in the city. That would kill us too. Yes, sir. But it would give the civilians time to evacuate. If the fleet fails and the swarm breaks through our lines, it's a last resort. A final option. Minho looked at his commanders. They understood what Junho was suggesting. A final sacrifice. A way to make their deaths count. Prepare it, Minho said quietly. If it comes to that, we'll take as many of them with us as we can. In orbit, the 9 human ships formed up for their final assault. They looked terrible. Damaged hulls, failing systems. But their weapons still worked. Their engines still fired. All ships, this is Captain Daeho. Today we end this, one way or another. It's been an honor fighting alongside all of you. For Earth. For Velos the Four. For everyone who needs someone to stand between them and the darkness. Let's go. The human fleet accelerated toward the swarm's main force. Not dodging. Not evading. A straight-line assault. At maximum speed. The swarm responded. Thousands of bioships moving to intercept. But the humans weren't trying to fight their way through. They were using their ships as battering rams, smashing through the swarm lines with pure momentum and firepower. Ships died. The Defiance reactor exploded, taking 50 swarm vessels with it. The Resolute lost its forward section but kept firing with aft weapons. The Indomitable took hit after hit, systems failing one by one. But Daeho kept pushing forward. There, Heejin called out. I have visual on a massive bioship. 10 times the size of standard swarm vessels. That has to be the hive. All ships, target that vessel. Everything we have left, fire. The surviving human ships unleashed their remaining weapons. Missiles, railgun rounds, laser fire, nuclear warheads, everything. But the hive ship was heavily armored. The weapons impacted, damaged, but didn't destroy. It's not enough, someone said. We're not going to break through. Daeho looked at his ship's status. The Indomitable was dying. Reactor unstable. Hull breaches on every deck. Most of the crew already dead, or evacuated to other ships. Then I'll break through myself. All ships, pull back. Get clear. Captain, what are you doing? Heejin demanded. Finishing this. Tell my family I love them. Tell Earth that Velos 4 lived because we were here. That's enough. Daeho cut communications and aimed the Indomitable directly at the hive ship. He rerouted all remaining power to engines and accelerated. The ship groaned, threatening to break apart, but it held together, just long enough. The Indomitable struck the hive ship at relativistic speed. The impact was equivalent to multiple nuclear weapons. The hive ship's armor shattered, its organic hull ruptured, and then the Indomitable's unstable reactor detonated, directly inside the hive ship's core. The explosion was visible from the planet's surface. A new star, brief and terrible, marking the death of Captain Daeho and his ship, and the death of the swarm's hive. Across the battlefield, the swarm drones suddenly lost coordination. They stopped moving in patterns, stopped supporting each other. They became isolated, confused, vulnerable. It worked. Heijin's voice was shaking. The hive is destroyed. The drones are losing cohesion. All ships, press the attack. Take them down while they're disorganized. The remaining human ships, joined by the Velen defense fleet, swept through the confused swarm forces. Without central coordination, the drones fell easily. On the ground, Minho watched through his tactical display as the swarm forces stopped their coordinated assault. They became scattered, random, easy targets. All units, advance. The swarm is broken. Take them down. The battle turned into a rout. The fearsome Ravager swarm, unstoppable force that had destroyed dozens of civilizations, was hunted down and eliminated ship by ship, drone by drone. By the next day, it was over. The swarm was defeated. Velos IV was saved, but the cost was devastating. Of the 12 human ships, only 4 survived. Of the 3,000 human volunteers, less than 800 were still alive. Captain Deho was gone. Lieutenant Salmon was gone. Hundreds of others, whose names Tyrus had learned during the long battle. The Galactic Council observation ships moved into orbit, their cameras recording everything. Recording the damaged human vessels. Recording the casualties. Recording the victory that shouldn't have been possible. And recording Ambassador Tyrus, standing in front of a memorial wall, reading names. Human names. Names of people who died for her world. "Why?" she whispered. A voice answered. It was Heijin. Now, the ranking human officer. Her face appeared on screen. Tired and sad. Because you asked for help. Because it was right. Because someone had to. Was it worth it? All those lives? Heijin looked at the camera for a long moment. Ask the 4 billion Velens who are still alive. Ask the children in the shelters. Ask the families that weren't destroyed. They'll tell you if it was worth it. Tyrus looked at the memorial wall, at the hundreds of names carved there. Human names. Heroes who came from a death world to save strangers. We'll never forget, she said. Never. I promise you that. Then they didn't die for nothing, Heijin said softly. That's all any soldier can ask for. 2 months after the battle, the Galactic Council convened an emergency session. Every major species sent representatives. The chamber that had been half empty when Tyrus begged for help was now packed with delegates. Ambassador Tyrus stood at the center again. But this time, she wasn't asking for help. She was giving testimony. The Ravager swarm attacked my world with the stated goal of consuming our civilization. 4 billion people faced extinction. We sent desperate calls for aid to every member of this council. Every single one of you refused. You said the battle couldn't be won. You said helping us would be suicide. You chose survival over morality. The delegates shifted uncomfortably. None of them met her eyes. Then Earth responded. A recently contacted species from a death world. A pre-council civilization that had no obligation to help. They sent 12 ships. Civilian volunteers, not military forces. 3,000 people who chose to fight for strangers. Tyrus pulled up images on the main display. Battle footage. Human ships taking fire. Human soldiers holding impossible positions. Human casualties mounting day by day. For 3 weeks, these volunteers fought the Ravager swarm. They taught my peaceful people how to become warriors. They held every critical position. They protected every civilian shelter. And when victory seemed impossible, they sacrificed themselves to destroy the swarm's hive ship. The footage showed the Indomitable's final moments. Captain Deho's ship accelerating toward the hive. The impact, the explosion. Captain Deho could have retreated. His crew could have saved themselves. Instead, they gave their lives to save mine. Less than 800 of those 3,000 volunteers survived. 60% casualties. For people they'd never met. For a world they'd never seen. Tyrus turned to face the council directly. I stand here today representing 4 billion living Velens. We lived because Earth sent help when no one else would. We lived because humans fought when every rational calculation said they should retreat. We lived because a death world species understood something you've forgotten. That civilization requires sacrifice. That survival sometimes demands we risk everything for others. The Threen delegate stood. His massive form seemed to shrink under the weight of shame. Ambassador Tyrus. The Threen Collective formally apologizes. We should have helped. We chose safety over honor. It will not happen again. One by one, other delegates stood, offering apologies, promising to do better. The words felt hollow to Tyrus, but at least they were learning. Then the Ascendant representative spoke. Earth has earned full council membership through their actions. We also offer formal military alliance with all member species. Earth's military tactics and training will be invaluable against future threats. Commander Heijin, representing Earth in Captain Deho's place, stood from the human delegation seat. She looked exhausted, haunted, but her voice was steady. The humans who fought at Velos the Four were volunteers, civilians who answered a call for help. They didn't fight for council membership or military alliances. They fought because it was right, because people needed help. That's all the reason they needed. Nevertheless, the Ascendant continued, Earth has demonstrated capabilities far beyond. We don't want payment, Heijin interrupted. We don't want rewards or honors. Captain Deho refused them before he died. I'm honoring his decision. Earth will accept council membership when our government decides we're ready. But we didn't earn it through violence. We earned it, if at all, through proving we'll stand with the innocent against evil. The chamber was silent. Finally, the council chair spoke. Then, what does Earth want? Commander. Heijin looked at the assembled delegates. We want you to learn. We want you to remember what happened here. The next time someone asks for help, don't calculate the odds of success. Don't worry about acceptable losses. Just help. Because that's what civilized species do. They protect each other. But what about requests for training? Another delegate asked. Many species wish to learn human military tactics. Surely Earth would provide instructors? We will, Heijin said. Not because you're paying us, not because you're allies, but because the galaxy needs people who can fight when fighting is necessary. An older human stepped forward. It was Colonel Minho, recovered from his wounds but bearing new scars. I'll lead the training program. We'll teach any species willing to learn, but understand what you're asking for. Human military doctrine is brutal, efficient. We fight to win, and we don't fight clean. Are you ready to learn that? On live. After seeing what happened at Velos the Four, the Kral war chief said, Yes, we are ready to learn. The council session ended with formal agreements. Earth would provide military training. The council would establish rapid response protocols for future threats. No civilization would face extinction alone again. But Tyrus knew the real changes were deeper. The galaxy had seen what was possible when people chose courage over safety, when soldiers fought for strangers, when sacrifice meant something. After the session, Tyrus found Heijin standing alone in an observation deck, looking at the stars. Commander, may I join you? Of course, Ambassador. They stood in silence for a moment. Then Tyrus asked the question that had haunted her. Why do humans do it? Fight for others? Your species has nothing to gain from helping strangers. Your history shows you barely help each other. You fight wars, build weapons, create suffering. Yet when we needed help, you came. Why? Heijin thought for a long time. You're right. Humans are violent. We've spent thousands of years killing each other over resources, beliefs, territory. We're good at war because we've had so much practice. But we also know what suffering looks like. We know what it means to lose family, to watch homes burn, to feel helpless against overwhelming force. We've all experienced it, every human culture, every human nation. every human person. We know what it's like to need help. And that makes you help others? Not always. Humans are complicated. Sometimes we're selfish. Sometimes we're cruel. But sometimes, when it really matters, we remember our own suffering, and we choose to spare others from it. We choose to be the help we wish we'd had. Tiris felt tears on her face. Captain Deho said something similar before he died. That humans are capable of great evil and great good. That today, you chose good. That's all any of us can do. Choose good when the opportunity comes. Deho chose. Saman chose. Junho chose. All of them. They saw people who needed help, and they chose to give it. Chernical, at the cost of their lives. Yes. That's what makes it meaningful. If sacrifice doesn't cost anything, it's not really sacrifice. Tiris looked at the commander. This tired, scarred human who had fought for 3 weeks straight to save strangers. What will you do now? Go home? Eventually, but first, I'm staying on Velos the 4, helping with reconstruction, making sure the Velen militia stays trained. Deho died protecting your world. The least I can do is help make sure his sacrifice wasn't wasted. The least? Commander, you've already done more than anyone could ask. Maybe. But I made a promise to keep your people safe. That promise doesn't end just because the battle's over. Over the following months, human trainers spread across the galaxy. They taught tactics, strategy, combat discipline, but more importantly, they taught philosophy. The idea that strength exists to protect the weak. That civilization requires people willing to stand between innocence and threats. That sometimes, the only way to preserve peace is to be ready for war. Colonel Minho established training centers on 12 worlds. His methods were harsh. Many students quit. But those who completed the training became the galaxy's new defenders. Not conquerors. Not invaders. Defenders. The Velen militia, trained in the crucible of the swarm invasion, became instructors themselves. They taught others what they'd learned from humans. How to fight through fear. How to hold impossible positions. How to sacrifice for strangers. On Velos the 4, a massive memorial was built. It listed every human who died defending the world. Captain Deho's name was first, Lieutenant Saman's second, then hundreds more, each name carved in stone, preserved forever. Tiris visited the memorial every day. She brought flowers, spoke to the names, told them about the world they saved, about the children growing up because they fought, about the civilization that survived because they sacrificed. One day, a young Velen girl approached her at the memorial. Ambassador Tiris, my teacher says the humans saved us. Is that true? Yes, child, very true. Why did they help us? We didn't know them. Tiris thought about Hajin's words, about Deho's sacrifice, about the question she'd asked so many times. Because we needed help, and because they were the kind of people who help when help is needed. That's what makes them special. Ever. Are all humans like that? No. Humans are complicated. They can be kind or cruel, brave or cowardly. But the ones who came here? They were the best of what humans can be. The girl looked at the names on the wall. I want to be like them when I grow up. Brave and helpful. Then they succeeded, Tiris said softly. Because that's what they wanted. For your generation, to learn to be brave, to help others, to stand against evil. A year after the battle, the Ravager swarm attacked another world. The planet, Kral Prime, homeworld of the warrior species that had refused to help Velos the 4. This time, the response was different. 12 species sent ships immediately. The Velen Defense Fleet, the Threen war vessels, the Ascendant destroyers. Even Earth sent what ships they could spare. Hundreds of vessels arrived within days. They employed human tactics. Coordinated strikes, terrain advantages, adaptive strategies. The battle lasted only 3 days. The swarm was defeated with minimal casualties. The Kral war chief sent a message to Earth. "We owe you a debt we can never repay. You taught us courage when we had forgotten it. You showed us that honor means protecting others, not just ourselves. Thank you." Heijin, still on Velos IV, received the message. She shared it with the surviving human volunteers. They were scattered now. Some returned to Earth, others staying to help rebuild worlds. But they all heard the message. "We did it," someone said. "We changed the galaxy." "No," Heijin replied. "Deho did it. Saman did it. All the ones who died. They showed the galaxy what was possible. We just lived to see the results." Back on Earth, the story of Velos IV became legendary. The 12 ships, the 3,000 volunteers. The battle that shouldn't have been won. Schools taught it. Historians studied it. Military academies analyzed every decision. But the lesson that mattered most was simple. Someone has to stand against evil. Someone has to help when help is needed. Someone has to sacrifice so others can live. Humans learned they could be that someone. And the galaxy learned that humanity, for all its flaws, understood something fundamental about civilization. That it's not built on strength or technology or resources. It's built on the willingness of some to protect others. Even at the cost of everything. Especially at the cost of everything. 10 years after the battle, Tiras attended the dedication of a new memorial. This one wasn't on Velos IV. It was on Earth, in a place called Arlington. Among memorials to human soldiers from countless wars, a new section was added. A wall listing the 12 ships. The 3,000 volunteers. The Battle of Velos IV. Heijin stood beside her, now a general in Earth's defense forces. Minho was there too. Older and more scarred, but still teaching new recruits. Other survivors attended. Less than 500 now. Time and age were claiming those the swarm couldn't kill. They remembered, Tiras said, looking at the memorial. Earth remembered its volunteers. "We always do," Heijin replied. "Every soldier who falls, every person who sacrifices for others, we remember them. That's our promise. That their sacrifice will never be forgotten. And the galaxy learned that lesson from you. Maybe, I hope so. Because the most important thing we taught wasn't tactics or strategy. It was that some things are worth dying for. That civilization requires people willing to make that sacrifice. That when someone asks for help, you go. Even if it's dangerous. Even if it's impossible. You go." Tiras touched the wall, feeling the carved names under her fingers. No allies arrived. Only veterans of 1,000 battles from a lethal world. "That's us," Heijin said quietly. "Deathworlders. Warriors. But also protectors. Defenders. Friends to those who need them." A group of young humans approached, cadets from the military academy. They looked at the memorial with reverence. One asked Heijin, "General, sir, would you do it again? Knowing the cost?" Heijin looked at the names on the wall. Friends. Comrades. People she'd fought beside and watched die. Yes. Without hesitation. Because 4 billion people lived. Because the galaxy learned that the swarm could be defeated. Because we proved that doing the right thing matters more than doing the safe thing. Would I do it again? Every single time. The cadet nodded, understanding. That night, Tiras and Heijin sat together, watching the sunset. On Velos IV, it was morning. Across the galaxy, on a dozen worlds, humans trained defenders, taught tactics, shared the lessons learned in blood and sacrifice. "Do you think there will ever be lasting peace?" Tiras asked. "No," Heijin said honestly. "There will always be threats. Always be evil that needs fighting. That's the nature of the universe. But there will also always be people willing to fight that evil. People willing to stand between the innocent and the monsters. That's the nature of humanity. And thanks to what happened at Velos the 4, that's becoming the nature of the galaxy. Because you taught us. Because Deho taught you. Because Salmon taught you. Because every human who died on your world taught you. We're just carrying forward their lesson. Tiras thought about the past 10 years. The changes in the galaxy. The rapid response to threats. The training programs. The alliances built not on profit, but on mutual defense. The slow transformation of dozens of species from passive observers to active protectors. The galaxy owes humanity a debt that can never be repaid. You don't owe us anything, Hijin said firmly. That's the whole point. We didn't come for payment or glory or debt. We came because you needed help. The day you start thinking you owe us is the day you misunderstand everything we did. Don't repay us. Pay it forward. Help the next species that needs it. Stand up to the next threat. Protect the next generation. That's how you honor what Captain Deho and the others did, by being the help someone else needs. In that moment, Tiras finally understood. The lesson wasn't about humanity being superior. It was about responsibility. About choosing to help, even when helping was hard. About being willing to sacrifice for strangers, because that's what civilized species do. Humanity hadn't come to conquer or dominate. They came to teach by example, to show what was possible when people chose courage over safety. And the galaxy learned. Years later, when another crisis emerged, when another species faced extinction, the response was immediate and overwhelming. Dozens of species sent aid, thousands of ships, millions of volunteers, and leading them, always, were humans. Deathworlders, who understood that their violent nature, their warrior culture, their ability to fight and sacrifice, existed for one purpose: to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. The memorial on Velos 4 grew over time. New names were added. Not just humans, but Velans who died defending others, Threen who sacrificed for strangers, Ascendants who chose courage over calculation, every species, learning what it meant to be defenders. But the first names, the original 12 ships, and 3,000 volunteers, remained at the center. Captain Deho, Lieutenant Somin, Engineer Junho, Sergeant Taeyong, Medic Jiwoo, Colonel Minho, who eventually joined his fallen soldiers on that wall after a long life of service, and Commander Heijin, the last survivor of the original volunteers, who lived to see the galaxy transform into something the old council members would never have recognized. A galaxy of protectors, a civilization of defenders, a universe where no was no longer an acceptable answer to a cry for help. She died at age 97, surrounded by friends from a dozen species. Her last words were simple: "We kept the promise. We protected them, all of them, and across the galaxy. In 1,000 languages, on 100 worlds," the response came back. "Yes, you did. Thank you." The memorial wall on Velos 4 bore an inscription. Carved in stone, visible from space, written in every known language. No allies arrived, only veterans of 1,000 battles from a lethal world. They came when no one else would. They fought when victory seemed impossible. They sacrificed so strangers could live. May we never forget. May we always be worthy of their example. May we become the help others need. And beneath that, one final line, added by Tiras before she died, carved with her own hands. They were only human. But they showed us what humanity means.